Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Today Fantasy Flight released a bunch of rules changes, clarifications, and errata for cards in Star Wars Destiny. We're going to go over all these changes. First main rule that has been changed is you can only override an upgrade once per round. So this, according to their article, was designed to prevent people from abusing FN2199 as well as abusing Ray and limiting the upgrade or the upgrade overwrite to one time per round. So with FN, you would play an upgrade on him, roll that, or a weapon, roll the weapon, do damage, overwrite it again if it was an ambush weapon, overwrite that, roll in the other weapon, do damage with that, and then take another action. So, for example, if you had an extra resource, you would play a hold down blaster. Let's say you had 3 resources for some reason, like you enraged the Night Sister in Rainbow Nines. Enrage the Night Sister, get an additional resource. Pay 2 for a holdout blaster next turn or next part of the round. Roll the holdout blaster, deal a damage. Overwrite the holdout blaster with an ambush action to get a vibro knife. Roll the vibro knife, do damage with that, and then overwrite the vibro knife again, paying the extra resource for something like a rocket launcher. And then rolling that, getting another resource potentially, or playing Imperial War Machine to resolve that for free. So now you can only override one upgrade per round. Next major section of changes is what they are calling balance of the force. So balance of the force in the rules clarification is point increases on certain characters. Some characters were just too effective at their current point values, or their old point values, I should say. So they've updated them to either be a +1 to either on either side or a +2. So the first one we're going to look at here is, and this is the old card, bear in mind, so is FN2199. FN2199, it was 1013, and they have actually changed him to be 1215. So to run a single die, you're going to have to pay 12. Elite will now be 15, because he was just almost too good for his point value. Probably point per point, probably the best character that they've released at a 13 points for 2 of his dice, and his insane ability was just way too powerful for that point level. So he went from 1013 to 1215. So he's one of the +2 characters. A few other characters that got this errata are Captain Phasma. We're going to take a look at her in just a second. We are now looking at Captain Phasma from the new 2-player starter game. Captain Phasma had her points adjusted as well, so she is now a 1014 instead of a 913 cost character. Their reasoning for this was that she just paired with too many other powerful characters, such as Darth Vader Dark Apprentice from Spirit Rebellion, Cad Bane from Empire at War, the original Kylo Ren, as well as the original version of Darth Vader from Awakenings, where you were running her at 9 and Vader at 21. So they adjusted her to 1014, and I can see why they did this, especially with some of the characters such as Dark Apprentice, the original Vader, and Cad Bane. However, one issue though is if people bought the 2-player starter game and bought 2 of them to run Phasma and Kylo at Elite, they will now not be able to do that because Kylo is a 17-point character at Elite. I suppose if you're just playing casually and your friends don't care, you can still run Elite Kylo, Elite Phasma. That's my only concern with this, is it changes. Some people may have bought that starter game to run the villain decks at Elite, and now with these point changes, they won't be able to do that. But that is the change to Captain Phasma. We're going to move into our next character change. The next character that had their points adjusted was Poe Dameron from Awakenings. So Poe went up by 2, so he's now a 1620 to run him at either a normal die or at Elite. This mostly due to the fact that people were running Poe Maz, even though I haven't really seen a lot of people play that deck lately. So a double Poe, double Maz deck was just very devastating. I think like pretty much throughout most of the summer after Spirit Rebellion came out, that was one of the top decks. I played it for a while. I eventually got tired of playing it. But now he is a 20-point character. So you can still pair him with people like, you can still pair him with a single Maz and still play that deck. It probably will be less effective because you're only going to have one Moz die, and you may not roll the focus, so you can focus into post special. But you can run him with like Rebel Trooper, for example, not Rebel Trooper and as well as Rebel Commando. But those are the changes to Poe, mostly probably due to Poe Maz. So Poe is now a 1620 for single and elite. We're going to move into our final character point change. And the final character that had their points adjusted was Ukkar Plutt. He is now a 1215, so he went up by 2 as well. They said they did this. Let me actually bring up the article. Um, his action can just generate a ton of resources, and he has a good die, a good ability, and good health as well. So it says, in addition of how the game changes in this update will affect the metagame, we are increasing his point value by 2 to prevent him from becoming too prevalent and to boost the vitality of other characters. And then it says Ukkar is now 1215. So I was running, I think, Elite Ukkar in my villain vehicle deck with Scenery and the Night Sister. So now I'll probably have to drop that to a single die to still be within my 30-point limit. But that is the final character that had their points adjusted. With Ukkar, he is now a 1215. We're going to move into the other rules changes next. So here is the first card that got an errata. We have Imperial Inspection. Still 0 cost, still essentially does the exact same thing. It's just now worded. After one of your dice rolls a disrupt, you may set the support aside to return an upgrade in play that costs 2 or less to its owner's hand. So before it was exhaust it to return an upgrade, you could then use that in the round after, and so on. So now when you roll the disrupt, you may, instead of exhausting it, you set this card aside, essentially like in the exile zone, kind of what they did with Hyperspace Jump, where once you use it, it is then put aside and can't be used again. But this is there to prevent just an abusive amount of upgrade bouncing by rolling Disrupt. I imagine Thrawn Ukkar was running this. I actually never played against Thrawn Ukkar, but I knew when I was like theory crafting the deck over the summer when we spoiled Thrawn, of course this was going to be in the deck because Ukkar has massive amounts of Disrupt on his dice, as well as the upgrades that are in that deck just have tons of Disrupt on them. So now you can still bounce an upgrade, still have your opponent essentially spend those 2 resources and have that upgrade be bounced and have them have used those resources. Now you just don't get to use it round after round. So that is the first errata. We're going to move into our next one. And next up we have an errata to Vibro Knife. Still 2 cost, still gray neutral, still has ambush. However, now damage dealt by this die or by dice it modifies is unblockable. So it doesn't just make all your melee damage unblockable. It only makes the die, the Vibro Knife die itself, and anything else that's modifying unblockable. So if you have the +2 on this, and let's say somebody else on 2 melee, or let's say you have a +2 on this, and another like 2 melee damage, that melee damage will be unblockable, but it won't be all of your melee damage will now be unblockable. So it's going to be only the damage off of this die and anything that it's being modified. They said that they did this because of shields. So essentially this negated shields entirely. Certain characters' abilities, such as Han, the original Han, with the ambush ability to be able to get a shield, as well as Count Dooku's ability, were completely basically irrelevant because of this card. So now they've changed it. Again, still ambush, but damage dealt by this die or dice it modifies is unblockable. So once you resolve this die and something else, your other melee damage just goes back to being normal melee damage that can be blocked by shields. So that is the change to Vibro Knife. We're going to move on to our next card. Next up, we have It's a Trap. Still Red Hero event for 1 resource. An event, choose a symbol showing on an opponent's die, then turn up to 2 of your red dice to sides showing that same symbol. So they took away ambush, and they took away the ability to essentially turn all of your red dice to a side your opponent's dice are showing. They said they did this because it would create a negative play experience where, let's say my opponent is showing range damage, and I pay 1 resource and focus 5 of my dice into range damage, and then just resolve a massive amount of damage all at once and probably defeat a character. I actually was playing a game of Tabletop Simulator against, I was playing Jin, Rebel Commando against, I think it was Post Snap, this is back over the summer, where somebody played this on they were playing post snap and they played this, focusing into essentially 11 damage, which is enough to defeat Jin essentially in one shot. So they've made it to where you can only turn up to 2 of your red dice to that symbol, and now it doesn't have ambush. Unless you can still give it ambush if you play it in conjunction with something like swiftness, though. So that is still an option, but now you're not going to be able to turn all of your red dice to that symbol, only 2 of them. So that is the change to It's a Trap. We're going to move into our next card. And the final card that received an errata was Heat of Battle from Empire at War. 2 resources, a neutral red event. Choose an opponent. That opponent turns up to 2 of their dice to side showing damage, either ranged or melee, and then turn up to 2 of your dice to side showing damage, either ranged or melee. I believe it used to read turn any number of dice, and according to the article, they said it was too consistent, as well as the fact that you could, if you rolled out first, somehow let's say you had some extra actions or something like that that let you roll out and then play an event, you'd be able to roll out, pay the 2 resources, and flip all of your dice to damage and not flip any of your opponent's dice to damage because they hadn't rolled anything out yet. So it was, again, they said it was too consistent, and it also created a negative play experience, as well as having very little to no drawback. And that's what created the negative play experience with this card. So that is Heat of Battle. That is the final errata. So we went through the character point changes as well as the cards that have gotten erratas as well. So that's going to do it for this video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. And take care. Thanks again.